refuse to do it again until I figure out a better system. And I am learning the SCEPs with Susan. And I wanted to also invite you to be sure and read Song of Increase. Song of Increase by Jacqueline Freeman, who is one of our members. Gives you a really good idea of where our heart is in this process. Oh, she wants to show. And so, yeah, I'm taking it personally that I can't keep bees alive also, and I'm literally terrorizing my whole piece of property, and it's a little yard in downtown Washougal, to try to figure everything that's going on. So, and also, if you're not on our website, really exciting right now, Susan and Jacqueline are in Holland at the bee convention, and the website is a continual blog. Both of them are excellent writers, and the blog will show you what's going on. And Susan took a class in photography before she went for her phone. Wow, did it pay off. These SCEPs, that's the old-fashioned straw hives. These SCEPs are blowing me away all night long. Okay, now, shall we get on with some business? Fiesta, you want to turn it?
So I wear a lot of hats, but one of the things is I'm trying to both raise money and get programs going for the group. And as far as the basket is concerned, we have a raffle basket, which is to raise money for the group, of course, for pay for various odd and sundry operations. But it's the pull for this basket. It's the entire basket. It's not just one, by item. The whole thing is being pulled for next month. Susan and I are going to be at trying to get money for the group at another meeting, so I'm not going to be there. But this basket, Debbie's going to take this basket home and bring it back, and we're collecting raffle tickets, and you don't even have to hold on to the tickets because your name and the contact information will be on the ticket, so therefore, you will be, if your name is pulled, then you'll be notified. And there's a lot of things in this basket. They're all bee related, of course, or garden related. So there's a lot of different cool things in there, including honey, including, books. And the one thing you don't see, I mean, you can come up and look at this later if you feel like seeing what's in here, because there's a lot of things. The one thing you don't see, Barry designed the Bee Haven box, which you see an example of outside the library. There's also a fundraiser online, and to purchase those, and you can see that on the fundraiser website. But he's donating a box to this basket, so it obviously doesn't fit in the basket. But if your name is pulled, then you'll get a beehive, which is really cool. And like he said, those beehives this is the first year that they have successful hive colonies in them. And it's been pretty exciting to see. So thank you, Barry, for donating that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different things. Some of the things that you might have questions about, I can answer, but it's mostly kind of standard and cute things. So if you feel like buying tickets, they are right here, and I will give them to you. It's $1 for one, $3 for 5, and $5 for 10. That's what we keep having to remember this. But anyway, yeah. So obviously, putting in $5 and getting 10 of them is better. So, yeah. A couple of other things I wanted to say to the group is that Susan and Jacqueline, being in Amsterdam, they're going to come back after this month with a lot of really cool ideas, SCEP designs. Susan's going to be teaching SCEP building. I'm sure some of the things that she's teaching are going to change because, she's learned an incredible amount. They're actually in the conference right now, so the note taking might be a little bit slower. But for the first few days that they were there, they were touring around and visiting schools and farms and bee museums and various things. So it was pretty awesome on the blog. So if you go to Preservation Beekeeping Council's site, it's not on the main page. You have to go to the blog spot and then look down at the bottom right on the page, and you'll see the different entries that they made. And yeah, the photos are really awesome. A couple of other things I wanted to tell the group is that we had an education intern work for us this summer. Shannon Wells Moran, who is a Reed College student, and he did this gratis. He's from Camas. He went to Camas schools, and he was helping us with the promise from us of recommendation letters. He researched the different schools in the district here, their sites, the people that are there, interest in putting beehives or siting beehives, either in the walls of the school or on the property or right outside the property, so they could have easy access to it. And he made a spreadsheet and he made a report, and that's come to me, and that's going to be available to everybody to take a look at very soon, like in the next probably week or so. And he may come to more meetings, but of course he's in the middle of starting back as a sophomore year in Reed, so he's busy. But what I wanted to tell you about this is that he gave us information about which schools really would like to have beehives there. And we were talking specifically about upper elementary or intermediate, like 4th and 5th grade. But I've been having conversations with people over the past few days at the Camas High School and at Hayes Freedom School, those two particular schools, and they're interested in senior projects, and they've got an environmental program at Camas High School, which Shannon was very involved in. He gave me contact information. And so there's going to be an opportunity for people who would be interested in being involved in that. And of course, there'll be more information. But what Susan and I thought was it was a good idea to have high school students be kind of liaisons between the schools that the beehives are sited at and her, and she would be, and any other beekeeper that wanted to do it, could be involved in going to the schools, working with the students, working with the beehives, giving presentations. As a former teacher, I can always give presentations, but I want to be a support person and a program setup person and development person. So I'll be working on curriculum for that. But I just wanted you to know that this is in the works because there's nothing on the website that talks about this. And we're going to have this opportunity because, yay, the city of Camas approved the new hobby beekeeping code that we presented to them. Yes, and because of that, and what's the most exciting about that is it includes discouraging people from using pesticides, which is incredible. And the other thing that it does is they're asking people not to buy packaged bees, not to buy queens and their attendees and having them sent to them, that we're trying to promote the local bee economy. So the interesting thing about that is that this is a weird situation in the country. It's very different from the movement of bees around the country in, trucks and setting up hives and, agribusiness commodity bees. This is about hobby beekeepers and the rules and regulations or lack of inspections about these. And so I wrote an internship proposal for a legal intern to work with us, to do research on this and figure out what the rules are all over the country and how this is being handled. And the University of Oregon and Lewis and Clark are interested in getting students involved in that. And so we will hopefully have somebody doing research on that. This group will be involved in that. And then I'm just excited because I would like to see some movement to stop doing that particular activity. And a lot of my interest in that and the impetus for that has to do with the fact that I used to be on the Oregon Invasive Species Council. And I'm very concerned about invasive species. And obviously, being a beekeeper, I'm really concerned about it too. So I just wanted the group to know that we're doing all of this among a lot of other things. And so things are going to ramp up. They're also considering, the city of Camas is considering being a bee city. So Bee City, USA. Seattle's a bee city. Puyallup is a bee city. There's a bunch of them, or not as many actually now. There's a number of them in Oregon. But there's also beehives sited, I love this, with Because, and that's just one group that's doing this. They've got 330 schools with on-site beehives, both in the walls and on the sites. They put out 35 more this summer, and they've got another 60 that are available that they've got money for. So starting September 1st. So if you, I'm sorry. This is the Because, which you can look up online. It's a national program based in Charleston, South Carolina, and Tammy Enright, who's the director, has been talking to me about this to get some of their materials, get a grant for the school district. So I'm working on that as well. And if there's anybody that knows people in the Camas School District, administrators, teachers, anybody, I would love to hear from you, because doing advance work is the most important part of making it actually happen. I was talking to Susan about the issue of bee stings, because that always comes up. And of course, bees don't sting you nearly as much as yellow jackets do, and they bite you as well. And when I asked her, I said, you're going to the Waldorf school, would you ask them, what do they do about that? And she wrote me back, and she said, she asked, they don't care. They said, it's not even an issue. They expect they're going to get stung. And so what? You know, they don't have any safety protocol in place and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because there are people that are highly allergic, but there's already protocol in place at every school related to being stung, because every kid that walks out on a playground is going to be subject to this issue. So, but I really want to talk to anybody who has contacts with the schools around here, because they are the people who are going to talk to each other and help make that decision about having hives located. There's an amazing amount of research that's been done to show that hives in schools is a wonderful thing. I even read Susan's entry from Friday about the fact that Heidi Herman was saying that she's with the Bee Trust that's running the conference, and she was saying how they just started a prison program. And that's something they do with horses, they do with farm animals, they do with dogs, they do all kinds of things. And apparently they're doing that with beehives in Britain now, and it's being very successful in transforming people's lives. So, yeah, it's all very exciting. Talk to me if you know anybody with the schools. Thank you.
Claimed back without the chemicals.
Yeah.
We're getting it.
Yeah.
Hey, you made it, done. Okay, I do need, thank you for reminding me, watch out for the cords. We are recording everything, and we don't, oh, my phone. We don't want our phones going off, and if we could keep the side chatter and things to a minimum, because it's going to pick up on here. This is available to everybody, because a lot of our people have moved away and they don't want to give up on this idea. So I don't know how many viewers we have, but a few. How are you? Do you need a minute, or are you ready?
No.
We did our business, we did our introductions. Now I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
So are y'all following the post from Susan? Very exciting stuff. I'm also, what I'm excited about with some of the pictures is I'm really looking forward to maybe people getting very creative with their skep building this fall and winter with Susan's classes. So, oh, I'm Debbie Cochran. Usually during the meetings, I don't do them, I just interject a lot. So, what I was going to talk about today, and I'm going to talk about it briefly because for me, there's not much that I do with my bees in the fall at all. as far as preparation, I even went online and, online it's about checking for mite count and putting things underneath and, well, what are you going to do about mite count? In this style of beekeeping, so people are treating other types of beekeeping styles, or treating at this time of the year for mites going into the winter. Or they're splitting hives and making, putting them in nukes. That does help with mite loads. I think it's for me, they also harvest at this time of the year. So I mainly keep standard American. No, not worry. Thank you. I mainly keep Langstroths because I've got a lot of used equipment, and I am dedicated to using what I have and not going out and buying new. So with a Langstroth, traditionally you go into the winter with the deep body and then a super. And then whatever's above that, you take for yourself in the fall. I've done both. I've done where I just leave it with the honey that they collected during the season and leave it be. So my personal thing on that, a bunch of space like that bothers me. Granted, in the wild, they're in a tree trunk and they got all this honey that they've collected. I'm not saying either way. Since I'm doing talks for this thing, a lot of us are coming from our personal feelings about something, and also some with backed up science. I'm not real good at that. So what I'm saying is that if you are going to harvest from a kiln style that has lots of pieces, parts, like the Moray does, not like Moray, like the Langstroth does, please leave at least a super on top. Some believe the bees are fine with just going through the winter in the brood box. Bees that go up looking for the additional food. Yeah. I have a worry, and I am in huge question about that. I've kept bees in worry before and left them be, right?
Right, I just wondered if you were going into it in the winter or to any of the summer to get anything out, because I haven't, and I have not done that because I don't know.
Okay, sweet. So I don't know how either. And I haven't read that part of the book yet, as they say. I haven't had a worry for years. Ooh.
I've never really taken anything from them, but I did look at them. I had like 3 boxes, and the top one was pretty much full of honey, because they kind of build up in those, and then you literally take the bottom one out.
Yes.
Because they'll just slowly migrate up.
Just like how you add boxes on the Moray is from the bottom.
Exactly.
Okay. So let me just say, this is what's going on in my Moray, and let's see if we can, because I'm a little, so my top box was drawn out comb from last year's bees who perished sometime in the winter. Actually, they absconded. They left and they took their honey with them, right? Oh. So I've had this happen a couple of times. I'm like, when did you all leave? Like, you didn't say goodbye or anything? Anyway, yes, some take their honey with them. Sometimes they look like they're frozen in space with huge changes in temperature. We're having some of that right now. We'll talk about weather in just a little bit. So with the Moray, so that's the top one, right? So I gave them all that, and that's where they went. So when I first caught the swarm, I just had 2 boxes, right? And so they went up and they were like, oh, we've already got some structure. We're going to start filling it. So they started filling up top, and then they started working out, making waxes on the bottom. Well, midsummer, I thought, I'm just going to give them another box because they're looking like it's well filled with waxes, certainly not well filled with food. And so I put another box on there. So the last month and a half, maybe longer, they've got a cluster in that bottom one, just like how they do when they're building wax, but they have not filled it. So it's only this much in the bottom. I'm going to leave my Warray the way it is because she still has, when bees are kept in this way, they have a tendency, as opposed to this way, right? They have a tendency to, or the queen has a tendency sometimes, and that's why people use queen excluders. I do not. Your bees start off the winter, they like to go down to the bottom. All right. And then in the spring, and then the summer, sometimes queens travel up just what I call a spine through the boxes, just in the middle. People are like, well, how can you get your honey if you don't have a queen excluder? You get it from the sides, okay? Leave her to do her thing. Sometimes it depends on the queen, but yeah.
So you have to lift the whole box up.
Well, I do each one separately, but everything's from the bottom.
Right, if you're doing it from the bottom, you have to lift the entire hive up, pull the box out, and put it back down on the base, which has a door to put food in, whatever, right? Right? And so it's pretty heavy because it's got comb and bees and honey and whatever. So that needs to be basically hoisted up.
So with a Warray, remember, they're much smaller than a lag, the boxes are. Unless Jacqueline has, I think someone donated to her, whatever, but in the idea of having more insulation, made a Warray with wood this thick. Holy whatever. It was, and think of that full of honey. But a regular size Warray, has a regular. Well, it is. It's why it's nice to have man friends.
So you need to have two people, one to lift it up and the other.
I take them off one box at a time. Okay, so I'm just going to use this for other things. Anyway.
Okay.
So I use these, and this time of the year, if there are any other, if you see political signs out, they're fair game. It's already done, and if they didn't pick them up already, it's fair game. Just my rules. So what I do when I take boxes off is I use these. Put it on the ground. Take a box off. And same thing with a lag when I'm having to take boxes off.
Starting from the top?
Yeah.
Okay.
You start from the top with both of them. Okay, that's what I'm saying, as far as dismantling.
Yeah.
So you take the top one off, put it down. Then I put the next box on top of it. And then whenever I'm done, okay, so then I put another one of these on top of it, just to keep everybody dark and feeling secure. And not all like this.
So you keep them off the sides that way.
Yes, I always,
Yeah.
So then you reverse the order to put it back together.
Well, it's the same, it's okay, you can call it reverse, but it's, So that's how I do the Warray, when I have to put a box on the bottom or at this point, I'm not going to take the box off the bottom because there's too much going on down there. And as it gets colder, and see, I don't want, okay, so we're going to get back to some of the fall business. Oh my God, the little baggie, goddess, whatever. The bags that we got, the traps, those little disposable bags, we bought 24 of them. I found them really cheap online. Anybody interested? And you don't have to buy a bunch to get, it's 1 or 15 or 5 billion of these bags. It's like less than $5 a bag. So we've had great success with that. And I found some nests and destroyed them. So, but you're a little different. You're in a city, so you can only manipulate your yard. Yeah.
They're not even.
Now you can go over to your neighbors and say, hey, honey, you want to be manipulated? I'll manipulate your ground, whatever, but it's not going to help. It's too close. But have the traps out. They worked great. I will say that they work great for about a week and a half. And then whatever mojo is in there seems to dissipate or not be as attractive to the. But we're really happy with how that worked out for us. So going into your hive at this time of the year, if you have a need to go in there or to manipulate anything, even to take off honey, my opinion, get it done before the middle of next month, period. So this is where I'm going with this and my feelings. Part of why beekeeping really works for me and dovetails into how I live my life and the things that are sacred for me is the directions and the seasons. So, and seasons don't always follow the calendar. Calendar is a man-made structure, okay? But the seasons and the directions, anyway. In that, for me, part of beekeeping brings me closer to these changes and what they represent. So right now, we went from hot, horrible weather that I couldn't be out in the middle of, in the day. It made me sick because I don't do well in the heat. And now, like this, we've got cold, put on a sweater evenings. Now we can still have another couple of hot flashes coming on here, but for me, it feels like an early winter this year. It smells like fall. And it's the very, very, very early part of September. So for me, I'm doing what I need to do to get ready for the winter. I assume the bees are too. They're feeling this cold night, and the dew is so heavy right now. You walk outside in the morning and you don't want to do it in your socks. Ew. Because your socks are going to get really drenched in a very short period of time. These are just measurements of weather. So the bees are really working on sealing their hives, and you don't want to mess with their amazing seal of medicine at all as the cold weather comes. And that's where we are. We're in this, the cold weather is coming. We've had some rain. Yet what I'm saying is if you need to go in there, I strongly suggest get it done before the middle of this month. And then leave your hives alone. No peeking in there unless you have little windows. Because you're going to break the seal. And
You're talking about propolis now, right?
yes, propolis, yeah. So just a thought, right? So you want to talk about insulation? I'm gonna. Before we jump to insulation. Oh, this is good. No, this is good. This is good. Oh, that's so cool. Okay. I'm going to talk about bio boxes. What's the other name for it? It's not just called bio. What? Eco Floor, bio box. The compost at the bottom of your hive. So with this, I'm just going to do this because this is, if you're going to go in and mess with your hives before the middle of next month, this is a good time. If you're going to go in there and disrupt, it's a great time to put your echo floor on the bottom and get rid of, and up to me, get rid of your landing board. Right? For with that, you either, this is the smallest box. And this is designed for cut cone. The size of the frames, once they're filled out, fits a specific size tool that is square, that goes into what is called little jewel boxes, which is nowadays a way of selling cone. So that's what this is for. So you can either put a bottom on this, and I feel that for this echo floor, that plywood is okay. Old plywood is even better because it is off-gassed. You're going to have all this compost type of material, in here covering that. Now, there's back and forth on this, but for me, I feel comfortable in drilling 5 or 6 holes in the bottom. I want, in case there's some kind of moisture issue, that it's got a place to exit. It's just me. So because I no longer have a landing board on it. Landing boards were great because you tilt it slightly towards the entrance, and if moisture builds up, it goes out the front off the landing board. When you do that so that ever so slightly, like 2 coins worth or so. This, I purchased these from a friend called Paul. This was his idea of an echo floor. It's not deep enough, right? So I purchased several because it's just easier to put a piece of board on this, but I had another idea of just playing around with it being deeper, and this already had the bottom on it. I was just, I'm going to drill a hole in here at the top, as high as I can here. And then I'm going to take plastic. It's fencing, but it's got squares that are almost 1 inch squares. And I'm going to attach on the inside here because I don't want the bees building their waxes down into the echo floor, which they'll do. And them coming in this way, I've got a screen underneath. They can walk across the screen. I even thought I was going to, this is an experiment, and I'll share this stuff with you. I'm also going to have a piece of slat like this that goes all the way across just to support the screen or the fencing, and also a catwalk for the bees. So I think of things like when they're ready to swarm. Jacqueline had a great experience where she was messing with the hive, and she noticed there wasn't anything going on. She goes to open it up, and they're all on the bottom, facing the entrance, waiting for whatever that right time is for them to swarm. So with that thought, I thought, okay, I need to provide some sort of structure for them when they're ready to swarm. So that was, part of the catwalk and all that. So anyway, I'm just saying this is a good time to do this if you want to do this. And or you can take a regular size box and cut it in half, this way. Right? And anyway, I'm not going to get into the top part for this. So installation. I use what I have. There are much more ecological, wonderful things. Now, straw bales some people have used around there. And yeah, Jacqueline said that it wasn't satisfactory to her back when she had some langs. Yeah, I think it depends where you live, and to me it just sounded ew, because I know what straw looks like after you leave it out in the winter time. So we just had a thing happen. Last year we had this material put up in our roof over the insulation that we have, and some real nifty kind of attic fans and stuff. This has little holes in it. And this type of material is available out there. Not a whole lot of R value, but I think better than black tar paper, which is the traditional thing that people use to insulate the langs.
So last winter we insulated the house. We kept it on because we was not materials for other reasons, but
We used foam, which we got from Home Depot, but it's low outgassing material, and it's got the R value on it, and it says what it's made of, and it's about an inch thick. We cut it to fit all the different sides, and I tried using that stuff last year, and it wasn't enough. So I'm using this stuff instead, and I use bungee and other types of straps. Yeah, straps on to hold it against the hive. And that seemed to be, really successful because of course, we had a pretty mild winter last winter, so I don't know what's going to happen this winter.
That's what I did with my top bar.
Yeah.
It took some doing.
Oh, yeah, it takes quite a bit. I did it on the top bar and the Warren.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do with the skep. I don't think I'm going to need it. But, yeah. So.
Use this styrofoam with the warrior has its own handles.
Yeah.
You cut out for the handles.
Yeah, we actually made
So we measured everything so that it fit exactly onto there.
I've been thinking about that.
So part of insulation is airspace between one material and the other, because air itself has an R value. And the more I've been musing about the Warray and the Langs, the Warray with the lovely handles, the more I'm just going to put this straight on and not compensate for the handles, because that's going to create that airspace and the ability for the wood to better breathe.
The one thing is, even if you do this and you strap it, it's not going to be totally flush. There is going to be air. It never fits exactly right, so that there's no airspace at all.
Right.
We did on the wire, we removed the handles. On the top bar, we didn't do any of that. We just fit it.
Right.
The thing. But you're right, the air is an issue, and but there are pieces of that, of all the houses that can't be covered with this for practical reasons, so that's where the air comes in. Yeah.
My legs are painted, and I don't know how much they breathe, right? But what I do know is that the bees so I have old boxes, so a lot of the corners are all wacky doodle. And the bees, during the summertime, early spring, they'll take the sticky stuff, propolis, thank you, from those injured parts on the boxes and come in and out of there. And then when other things change for them, they seal back up again. Well, I don't know, maybe they might do that sort of thing during the winter. I don't know, and I want to give them that option, because they do have that control to open things up. I might have sprung a leak of some sort, or there's a humidity problem because we had driving rains, which we usually don't, but it can happen, right? So I want to keep a little bit of an air thing there. So this stuff, right? I cut it to fit. I'm going in this year in with one super and a brood box on my lengths. It's just what I'm going to experiment with this year because in prior years I just left all the honey there, and there was some problems I had with that. So I'm going to cut a frame. So think of a brood box with a super on top, and then at the top of the thing. So I'm going to cut a frame. And I got a great big sheet of this from Lowe's. So it's not just this. I'm going to cut this like this out, just to have a frame of this. Put this on and put this up against the hive. This is my experiment. I wanted to have air between the styrofoam. Part of it had to do with, well, the gases it puts out and whatever. And if they don't have a good seal, I mean, I'm just playing around with the what ifs. If I were a bee, what would I like? That. So, and someone donated a bunch of this stuff. So this is what I'm using. This is what I have free. I have this free too. So, and I'm going to leave these up year round, right? Because I haven't taken that jump. I'm still playing around with how I want to cover this. Someone suggested that there's some different mud applications that they use for housing, cobbish style. Because I think this is ugly. Yeah, it's the only reason I was cover. Yeah. I was kind of like, how can I make this look prettier? I also thought, they have those bamboo screens. Once the springs are done, put that around it. It would look more natural. So there's some aesthetic things.
We have old cedar fence.
Oh.
Cut it up and put it.
Yeah. So any way that this can be not, and this gets real dusty after a while once it's in the sun for a while. So check it. You might have to change it out. It just gets. So that's insulation. Oh. Styrofoam cover.
Yeah, that's what you
What is
do.
it? What is that?
It's a styrofoam cutter. Hold on a second. So let me let's open this up. This company calls it a styro cutter. So I had there's all kinds of styrofoam cutters out there, right? Basically, you plug it in. This gets very, very hot, all right? And I'll pass this around. A lot of the styrofoam cutters out there, some of them are really, really expensive. And they're like these table models where they have a wire and then some sort of metal armature thing, and then all the electricity, all that works out. The problem with that is if I have a really big piece of styrofoam, I'm going to end up with some waste if the little wand works really well for me. The other way is a box cutter. All right, and you can hit, even though my box cutter is not as deep as this, right? And you can score it. Is that cool? All right, so there's different ways of cutting it. This was the best one I found. I got it at a craft store. They only had one left. It had been used, put back into the package with goo on it when she pulled it off the thing. Somebody just taped it up and put it back. And I said, this has not only been used, it's been very used. And she says, well, and she wanted me to finish her sentence. I said, I want this severely discounted. And she did. More than half. So I would never say that. But you can order these online, which to me, it's going to be a lot easier. I had to
travel to Kelso or the next town up. It was a half a day affair for me to get this. They used to carry them and maybe now that we're coming into Christmas, because it's for people make things out of styrofoam to give to their families. Oh yeah. Oh, styrofoam is a very bad thing, but it's great for making props. So I'm going to pass this around. Where's the little piece of paper that?
I already passed it.
Oh, okay. There's the tool. Okay, and you'll see that it's not really strong. And what I've worked out with my wife and I when I go to cut big pieces, she has some heat, like a hot pad kind of thing. She holds the hot end, and I hold it so we can just have a nice straight line. You have to really practice with that. But the styrofoam cutters are great. Don't use them in an enclosed space. It needs to be very well with the air changing. Yeah. So how many of you worry about your bees in the winter? Okay. All right. Oh well, there's you. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about worry and about how it's really, really bad. So one of the things I used to tell my mom when she would tell me, "You're late coming home," I was very worried. In my smart mouth kind of way, but meant it from the base of my everything was, "Mom, when you need to worry is when the policemen are at the door knocking, you open the door and they have a very, very serious look on their face. Otherwise, assume I'm okay. Assume the best possible outcome. Assume something other than the worst possible outcome. It doesn't help me. Energetically, it does not help me. Because you're part of the problem." That's a smart ass. So, no, she was a devout Catholic. And just through her spirituality, talk about guilt and all that kind of stuff and worry, she got it. I mean, she still needed to speak how she felt, but she got it. So this is the thing about how I sit with my bees or rest with my bees, is I bring them into my heart often. And my relationship with my bees is similar to the relationship of a devout Christian talking to Jesus all the time. That's how I live with my bees. In the winter, please don't worry. Cover them in a beautiful, resplendent quilt that comes out of your creative imagination. Give them all the support that you have in that magic, wonderful way. That's the best thing you can do for your bees. So, with that said.
Worry is a bully.
Oh,
right?
Totally. Speak a word. Total word.
Say it for the team.
Yeah.
Worry is a bully.
Worry is a bully, is what Pixie says. And it's true. It doesn't. If you don't have the facts in front of you, why go there? Go.
So I worry about external factors.
Okay.
I don't worry that the bees are not handling themselves properly or that they can't handle their own issues. What I worry are like things attacking the hive, like a bear Or, you know, in my case, there are no bears in my neighborhood, although there are plenty of coyotes, but, yes, the main thing I worry about in the wintertime is the wind, which you don't get as much of here, but we get a lot of wind. I live, you know, in outer southeast Portland. We get a lot of wind and ice, and things blow down, and things get like water gets blown sideways, and my beehive's getting soaked, and that would kill them because, you know, they lose their insulation. So the question is, in my mind, is what is the best way to protect things like skeps that are natural materials? Susan was showing pictures of all the hives being inside, that they don't have hives out in the fields, that they have shelters around them, or they're in a barn, or they're in some kind of building because that's what they need. Yes. So what do you do if you don't have a barn? Should you be building a shelter for your skeps? Should you find, is there some alternative?
They need a shelter. And there's different, like, a lot of pictures I've seen because I'm still really interested in making little churchy, like, and not church, what am I thinking? You're driving down the road in Europe, and there are these lovely little shrines. I want to make skeps shrines. And some comical.
How do you put the work in?
How you put the work in those skep and the being that you have inside that skep?
Yeah.
Shrine it up. So. Okay.
And they actually do what you're talking about shrine in the traditional medieval way. We went to an open air museum that did medieval buildings. And they use clay tile, and they basically do several rows of a tile like you would do a long bench that has poles coming up, and then has the clay tiles over the top, and they put it up against like a building or something like this, like a shelf. Put the skeps on, the traditional skeps. Put the clay tile across the top, so that it's angled to get the rain off them, but it still gives them all the access. And it's semi-protected. I mean, you know which way the wind's going to come in during the winter and stuff like that, but the traditional would be exactly what you're talking about, a little structure, not something big, you don't need a barn, but that you would just put out there. If you're going to build something for grapevines, it's not much more exotic than that, except you'd have some sort of roofing.
Gets wet, and then the wind blows, and there's
Do you have signs on it? Because isn't it just a small shelter just for your skep?
yes, but it doesn't have protective sides, and that's. Do you have any extras?
They come in big sheets, and so does the insulation.
I haven't been able to find them.
This?
Yeah, that material.
You know, I have. Yeah, but that's really expensive. So what I found, just like ordering things from Wally World, and you go pick it up at their closest store, you can do the same thing with Lowe's and Home Depot. Because they don't keep this in stock, and the more I thought about it, is like every time I've gone and I found some. This stuff is, when it's big sheets, it can bend easy.
But that will actually catch the wind and pull the entire structure.
My thing is, it's like, even slats, even if you took pallet wood, you just into your supports. That's what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I would do it on 3 sides. And then the side that's got the entrance, do it to about here to where their entrance is, and make that so that it can actually hold some heat in the top there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
We see those round hangers with round tops that you can put rubber through. You screw them into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
I would use those.
Well, you strap your,
I'll Google it. But basically what I do is I have one of these of my shelter, because I've got a heavy roof on each of my shelters that are basically made out of pipe for my top bars. And they're tall, they're like 6 feet tall. I don't have siding on them. But what I do is I take ratchet straps. And so I'll ratchet right over the roof, like from the ground over the roof and into the next anchor and tighten them. And those things are really tightened down. I also take those 5-gallon water buckets and fill them up with concrete and put my anchors in there and use those to ratchet my hives down. And I mean, so far, I used to have hives in Portland and that worked.
I have
Southeast Portland.
my hives ratcheted down to
Yeah.
the tables that they're on.
Yeah, and so the structure too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
my hives, the Langs are on 2 courses of cinder block. And I ratchet them down to one ratchet down to that bottom one. If it knocks over, it's fine. The bees won't all blast out. It's okay if it knocks over. The reason I started doing that, wasn't the weather, is I was starting to find deer hair on the sides of my, so they were using this as scratching posts. You know, a tree is so much more effective, but that's just what they wanted to do. And that's when I started ratcheting down in the winter time, and they, into the spring really. Insulation. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm done. I feel, I'm sorry for being late. Oh, one other thing. With the, some of the worries. There's a lot of stuff that's out of our control. Weather, bears, and all that. You do the best you can with what you got. But once you've got that placed, you know, as some of my Christian friends say, you know, I leave it in the hands of God or leave it in the hands of whatever. Don't worry so much.
It's hard for us, like typing control things.
Yeah, I'm just a let it fly.
I'm always just working on being typing.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about something we can control. Oh, Pixie again. Sorry, I started this thing. If you haven't been to one of my classes on growing plants for bees and yourself, please take one of those. You may already have one. What I wanted to mention the most that we need to know right now about the bees is don't clean your garden. Don't trim your lemon balms. Don't cut back anything. Every flower counts. If you have a yard you can flower, which, you know, you have to weigh the water against the watering, but if you could water your garden right now, don't water the flowers. If the flowers get wet, then it takes them longer to put out fresh or for it to dry, whether it's pollen or nectar. And another thing, if you're starting to think about hives, a lot of people don't recognize that the invasive plant, which you'll kick my tail later for, ivy, is going to be extremely important for the bees starting now. Most of them are going for the ivy. This is one of the things that covers the dearth. The thing that happens when all of the squash flowers are done and the lemon balms are down to almost nothing and the calentulas. I got a list of things that are flowering, but you know what's in your yard. And most important is if you don't water it, the plant won't go to its full potential of putting out flowers, pollen, because it doesn't trust that there's any good place for its seeds. So it'll hold its energy. So if you have things like my yard, the lemon balm took over. They're looking really bad. Every time I go out to say, all right, I've had enough, we're trimming this, the bees go, no, you're not. And I was out this morning trying to make sure that we had everything I needed to say. And what she's trying to say about worrying is really important if you understand that vibrationally we're all connected and what's going on with you is going on with them. If you're sitting inside pining, that energy is going out, and we are part of their being. So if we can start imagining whatever works for you, pink light or whatever, but if we can give them trust and energy, I hope you're doing all right, I'm sending you everything I got, that's going to raise their vibrations. Worry is a bully. Not only does it do this to your face, but it literally shuts down your immune system. They don't want you to have that.
Amen. When you were mentioning the lemon balm
before I moved into that house, and what I discovered is that if I do what you said, if I water, like intermittently give it some water, they throw out more flowers. So it looks like they're all got seed heads and it's like they're done for the season. And then I give it some water and then, oh, there's some more flowers and the bees are going back to it. So, you know.
Well, as I grow weeds on purpose, I try hard not to mess with the garden. And if I leave my lemon balm all winter long, I have the biggest assortment of little tiny birds coming in to eat the seeds. So, and the native pollinators put their babies in the tiniest of little stems. So it's, again, going back for me, let the bees be bees, let nature be nature. Quit cleaning me up, I don't need it. And isn't that difficult?
So I met you last year, and I took your advice about not cleaning up. And I'm actually like a total dork here, but this year for the first time I had hummingbird moths in my yard. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. I thought it was the biggest bumblebee I'd ever seen, but it had butterfly wings and it was zipping all over the place. And then, so I immediately had to go inside and read about them, and they reproduce in the fallen leaves and everything beneath flowers that I've always cleaned up. It's called a hummingbird moth or a hawk moth.
Oh.
It's huge. Okay. It's insane. But
It's a really big proboscis.
You will never forget it. Oh, and it's that cool.
so yeah, the whole advice for if you want to invite those to your property, do not clean up around the flower plant after they drop their leaves and stuff.
That's why one of the things works so well when they leave that berm around areas of great big agriculture. If you don't disturb and you let the wild things grow, there's so much more going on. That now the mud dauber can find mud. Now everybody that can't live with us tidying up flourishes, and we need them. We really
with that no-till gardening and letting nature mulch over.
And if you eat your weeds, come on over sometime, I'll show you. If you don't till or disturb your soil, you don't get your weeds. It's very disturbing because now I have to go out and disturb the soil so that my chickweed and dandelion and the lamb's quarter and purslane's going nuts right now. It won't come up. Fun.
Well, you do get but when you
Of weeds and at different seasons, and they provide food for a biodiversity of organisms that you do not have when you have a lawn, or you have monocultures, or you have, you're always, beating it back. Basically, you're beating it back to a primary succession stage, which doesn't provide for very many organisms. So,
And even the world from the eyeball of a weed, how can I get rid of it, is not a nice way to go through life, because that's in front of you is there for a reason. You can guess I'm into plants. So the other thing was to just about anything that you're growing, if you have a perennial, if you as a gardener will go in when it's all green and it's just starting to put out its buds, go in and whack her down to the ground. I know it sounds awful, but it will delay the coming of the flowers. It will increase the number of flowers. Remember, if you cut it, it will grow back with 2 stems. And it will delay it so that the bees have something to go look for. Like if I had remembered this year to cut back my echinacea, she wouldn't be finishing up. She would just be getting going. That's another way to try to push it. But remember, a lot of the things that grow around us that we're out there weed whacking thinking we don't need, somebody does. So if we could just kind of tune ourselves to be a little bit more relaxed around nature, she might have something for us to hear. Okay, do we have any questions? Because you folks were even just considering beekeeping. Did you hear anything you want to question?
We
went to Europe. We met a really nice lady in a little place called Titchfield.
Yeah.
And her name was Sally. And so she was really kind when she let us see her hives, and she was a beekeeper herself. And we've been trying to write back and forth. And she says, I just go out every morning and talk to my girlies, and they're fine. And I mean, I get a few stings here and there, but besides that, I mean, they're really sweet. My dogs sort of just stay away from them because they've gotten stung before, and just leave them be.
Isn't it amazing to step on a place that has bees, and the 2 years that I had beehives, my rosemary bush, which is this huge, totally covered for 2 full years in blue flowers. Last year I lost my beehive. The queen didn't make it back. She's put out 2 flowers. And I have bees in my yard, but it makes a difference. The fairies are required, and it's all part of the same thing. How about any other questions? I think the most important thing as a group that we offer each other is we're going to continually come together and say, did it work? What worked? And we also join with others all over the world to say, what worked? What didn't work? One of the things I liked best was the Portland Beekeeping group have pamphlets. They're not pamphlets, surveys. And they're literally putting it into the computer. And by the way, it was Shannon's mom that introduced me to Susan when she said to her, I want weeds. So she hooked us up. I was in Susan's yard. I'll be back over there in a few minutes. And the skeps are doing wonderful. And the bees seem to be extremely happy. And there are no yellow jackets in her yard in the times that I've been there observing. And the neat thing about the skeps is that you can tip it and look without totally destroying their world. It's cool when she does it.
I just had a question about website or Facebook group. What's the best place to be able to see your friends with history? Oh, the website. What's the website?
Yeah.
Also, we're also, if you see on Facebook, we do a lot with women in beekeeping. Susan and Jacqueline do a lot of opinions on that. Might keep an eye on that.
So there's, so our Facebook, we have 2 Facebook addresses. One is Preservation Beekeeping Council. Preservation Beekeeping Council is one. And that's our formal presence on Facebook. Nonprofit, the formal nonprofit presence on. The other one is Preservation Beekeeping Community page. We've got more than 1,000 people that have liked it, and it's way international. It happened within a year, because I think that's about as long. And we've got that from really different places. I mean, places like, whoa, I got to look up that country. I've never heard of it, right? And YouTube. Oh, okay, that's that. And please interact there. YouTube, which you oversee, right? We have a YouTube channel, which is just Preservation Beekeeping. Okay. And so we put our meetings on there, and other fun stuff. Barry's movie. I haven't seen that yet. I gotta go there.
I didn't know we had a YouTube station.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell I'm a computer quick.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
It doesn't show up in my remote.
Yeah. So there's different ways, and our website is really nice. Whatever the font she uses and the style of that website is really calming just to go on it. I mean, it's feast for the eyes. So, and for me, it's like there's a really nice balance between photo, images, and text. It's just, I hate, websites that are just jarring when I open them up.
Type A, darling. Would we say type A?
Well, there's a part of me that's like, if you can't present yourself, don't get out of bed in the morning.
I love it.
So,
I do, before we wrap up, I do want to remind people that we have the raffles for sale. Somebody will figure out the right.
when's the drawing?
The drawing's in October.
That's
You're
fun.
gonna be running.
Oh, okay.
At that meeting. I wanted to bring up, how many people?
Top art items. Okay, I do. But anyway, two things. Well, one thing. My husband uses a 3D printer to make various things, and one of the things he makes is this entrance reducer, which has basically saved my top bar height from being inundated with yellow jackets. And I didn't even bother to screw it in. I just at first I was using one that was too long. This one was actually too long. It needs to be about a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch shorter. And then it's 1 B tall in the front, and it's 2 to 3 Bs tall in the back. And it basically it does the gauntlet thing, just like it does the same thing.
Like that?
Yes, just like that. And this is the side that goes against the hive.
Okay,
And so the bees can land around it, on top of it. They guard it outside, but they also guard it inside. So talking about worry. Every time I see a yellow jacket land on that board, I'm like, oh no, I gotta spray it. I gotta hit it with water. I gotta do something. And he's just like, no, the bees will take care of it, and they do, because they're all in there and they're hanging out around it. As soon as that yellow jacket shows up and lands there, they just chase it off, and they're not stupid, well, as insects go. So they just basically say, nope, we're leaving. But yeah, it's actually useful. And the other thing is, Debbie was talking about airflow. And one of the things he did was use a whole saw, whatever you call those things. Maybe that's what it's called. And yeah, with a drill. And he designed this plug that fits exactly into this 2-inch hole. That the holes are less than the bees can't get out, but there's lots of air going through. So he designed it so that yellow jackets couldn't come in there, bees couldn't go in and out of there, but there's yeah, so it's actually, they're on the bottom. So the place, like I put cinder blocks, and then the box was on the cinder blocks, and this was in the space in between. So there's this convection current that goes up, not a big one, but a little one in the middle of the box, so that they can get more airflow. Because the box that I bought from you, Barry, is great, but it's thicker because it was one of your early iterations, and it's very heavy and it's very dense, the wood is. So this adds some insulation. Adds some airflow, so if anybody needs one of these, or you need for a top bar, if you're planning to get a top bar and you want to put this in the front, this is really useful. I don't put it there until when the yellow jackets show up. And I put it there. Put it on the sides too.
Yeah, I guess you realize that, but even on the bottom, and you've got all this material, compost material on top of it. There's still air coming in and not, creating big gusts and that sort of thing, but just enough for a biological dance. It's the best way for me to put that. Adding air to anything, usually. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Right.
Also, what Jacqueline said at the picnic was that she put a lot of holes in the bottom of her eco box, just little ones, so that the bugs could get in. So I see little bugs going in the entrance, which I thought, because I never thought about how bugs would get in and out. So
We learned something. We went to the bugs in and out. You were with me when we went and did that thing with the yellow jackets over at Jacqueline's house. So the screen, the guy was showing us all this. The screen he brought.
will be available soon.
We didn't, yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. To put over one of the applications of working with a nest in the ground of yellow jackets was to put screen over it, which essentially, and weights and starve them out. You would have never thought that the Yellow Jackets could get through 1/4 inch, or was it 1/8 of an inch? 1/8 of an inch screen. So you don't want the Yellow Jackets getting in there. So whatever holes you put in there, I would suggest less than 1/8 of an inch drill bit. Okay. That experience, they immediately did that, and my brain was like, oh, 1/8 of an inch. And the same thing with what I was saying about for the bees to be able to go down in the aco floor and come back out again, and without knocking pollen off their legs, more than 1/2 inch for them to go through, okay? Because when you think of bee space. Okay. We're anything else? All right, this is wrapped up.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming in. You people in TV land, thank you for coming. Oh, next meeting is next month. It's the first Saturday of the month. Anybody know what that date is? It's October 6th. 10:30, Camas Library.
See you here.
See you here.
Be fair or be square. Okay.